The house was dark when I walked in, the kind of stillness that feels like it's holding its breath. My heels clicked softly across the marble floor. Too quiet, too clean. But the moment I reached my room, my pulse broke that silence. The safe was open. Wide open. And empty. Every file, every cash stack, every small velvet box, gone. Then came footsteps. Heavy, unhurried. Dad leaned against the doorframe, smirking like this was all a joke. "Relax," he said, his tone casual. "Your sister's tuition was due." I blinked. "You stole from me to pay her bills?" "Borrowed," he corrected. "Family helps family." From behind him, Mom's voice chimed in, sweet and sharp at once. "You'll thank us later, honey. You don't need that money. You're doing so well." I stared at both of them, their faces calm as if they'd just discussed the weather. No shame. No hesitation. Just entitlement wrapped in love. "I see," I said finally. Dad smiled like he'd won something. Mom gave a little shrug. And that's when I whispered the words that would rewrite everything. "We'll see who thanks who." That night I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply opened my laptop, logged into the accounts they'd been using, and began transferring power piece by piece. By morning, my father's business account showed access restricted. My mother's joint card flashed frozen. And my sister's tuition portal blinked red. Payment declined. Enrollment withdrawn. When the calls started coming in, I let them ring. By noon, the family group chat exploded. By evening, my sister's voice could be heard from 2 rooms away, screaming. Dad's tone cracked under pressure. Mom's voice trembled between anger and begging. They had taken my savings in the name of love. Now they were about to learn what my silence could cost. By the time the sun rose, the entire house was chaos. Screaming from upstairs. A crash of drawers. The metallic sound of desperation. I sat at the kitchen table, stirring my coffee slowly. Silent. Watching the unraveling begin. Mom burst in first, hair tangled, robe half-tied. "What did you do?" "Had breakfast," I said. "Want some?" Her eyes darted toward the phone in my hand. "You locked the accounts?" I tilted my head. "You mean the accounts I built? With the money I earned?" "Yeah. Those ones." From the hallway, Dad's voice bellowed, "You ungrateful brat." Then he stormed in, veins pulsing at his temples, still in his robe. "You froze everything. The mortgage, the car, the company card. What are we supposed to do now?" I sipped my coffee. "Maybe ask the daughter you emptied out yesterday." That stopped him cold. Mom tried the soft route again. "Sweetheart, your sister's education." "Wasn't my responsibility," I interrupted. "She has 2 parents. Or did you forget?" Dad slammed his hand on the table, rattling the mug. "We raised you. And I funded your retirement. So I'd call us even." For the first time he looked unsure, like a man realizing the ground beneath him wasn't his anymore. Then came the scream from upstairs. "My sister. What do you mean they won't reinstate me?" Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's chest heaved. I stood slowly, calm as ever. "Actions have consequences. I learned that from you." I grabbed my keys, walked to the door and paused. "You told me to thank you later," I said softly, turning just enough to meet their eyes. "Well, I consider this my thank you." Behind me I heard the sound of something breaking. Maybe a glass. Maybe denial. But I didn't turn around. Some lessons only sink in when the silence starts costing them something they can't buy back. By afternoon, the house felt like a crime scene. Not from violence, from realization. The curtains were drawn. Dad paced the hallway like a man searching for lost control. Mom whispered into the phone, switching between pleading and pretending nothing was wrong. And my sister? She sat on the couch, eyes red, muttering that it wasn't fair. They'd always used that word fair like it only applied to them. I spent the day downtown, away from the noise, sitting in my office. The same business Dad used to brag about running, before I rebuilt it. Before I saved it from bankruptcy. Before I became the silent majority shareholder without telling him. He still thought he owned it. He didn't. My phone buzzed. 12 missed calls, 5 from Mom, 3 from Dad, the rest from relatives who'd clearly been dragged into the drama. The last voicemail caught my attention. Dad's voice, shaky and lower than usual. "You've gone too far, kiddo. We're family. You can't just shut us out." I replayed it once. Then deleted it. Family wasn't supposed to sound like a threat wrapped in guilt. Family was supposed to sound like safety. When I returned home that night, Dad was waiting in the living room. No yelling this time. Just silence, heavy, restrained. "You think you're teaching us a lesson," he said quietly. "No," I replied. "I'm remembering one." He frowned. "And what's that supposed to mean?" "That love without respect isn't love. It's leverage." He didn't answer. Mom stood by the doorway, eyes glistening, but she didn't step forward. I walked past them both, up the stairs, and shut my door. For once, I didn't feel like the child in their house. I felt like the adult in mine. The next morning, Dad showed up at my office, the one with my name etched on the glass wall he'd once called temporary. He didn't make an appointment. He just walked in, shoulders squared like he still owned the air around him. "Your assistant tried to stop me," he said, voice strained. "I told her I built this company." I leaned back in my chair, calm. "Correction. You started it. I built it back from the ashes you left behind." He dropped a folder on my desk. A stack of statements and invoices like proof of some imaginary debt. "You think freezing accounts makes you powerful? You wouldn't have any of this without me." I looked at the papers, then at him. "I wouldn't have your mistakes either," I said softly. "That's progress, don't you think?" He went red, jaw tight. "This is family business." "Exactly," I replied. "And that's why it's falling apart." He stared at me for a long time. "You really believe you're better than us?" "No," I said. "Just freer." He slammed his fist against my desk, rattling the pen holder. "You've humiliated us." I stood. "No, Dad. I just stopped funding the illusion." The room fell silent. He looked around. The modern glass walls, the view, the calm hum of employees who now worked for me. And something in his face broke. "You own this place," he whispered. "I've owned it for a year," I said. "Grandpa's shares passed directly to me." He staggered back like the words had weight. "He never told me." "Because he knew," I interrupted. "You'd never appreciate what wasn't handed to you." He looked older suddenly, smaller. For once I didn't feel anger. Just clarity. When he left, he didn't slam the door. He just whispered, "You're just like him." And for the first time in my life, I took that as a compliment. By evening they all came. Mom, Dad, and my sister, storming into the office lobby like it was a battlefield they forgot they'd already lost. Security called up first, but I told them to let them in. They entered together. Mom looked like she hadn't slept. Dad's anger was replaced by something worse. Panic. And my sister, she was crying, but not for me. Only for what she'd lost. "Clara," Mom started, "this has gone too far. Your sister's future." I raised a hand. "My name's on the door. Let's not start with guilt." Dad slammed the folder on my desk again, same one from earlier. "You think this money makes you invincible? We raised you." I met his eyes. "And I rebuilt everything you burned." Mom's voice cracked. "She's your sister. She's family." I exhaled. Family means something different to me now. My sister stepped forward, wiping her tears with trembling hands. "You could have just talked to us," she said. "I tried," I whispered. "For years. Every time I called, you needed something. Not someone." Silence. Heavy. Even the hum of the air conditioner felt loud. Dad sank into a chair. "You really think Grandpa left you everything because you earned it?" "No," I said softly. "Because he watched who showed up when it mattered and who didn't." Mom looked down at her hands, fingers twisting the wedding ring like it held answers. "You're punishing us," she said finally. "No," I said. "I'm reminding you I exist." The words landed hard, sharper than shouting ever could. Dad leaned back, defeated. My sister sobbed into her hands. And I realized I didn't hate them. I'd simply outgrown them. As they walked out, I looked out at the city skyline, lights flickering like second chances. I'd spent years begging them to see my worth. Now they'd have to live in a world where they couldn't afford to ignore it. They didn't speak to me for weeks after that day. But silence was nothing new. It just sounded different when I chose it. The news spread quietly through the family. Everyone had an opinion. Cousins called me cold. Aunt Meredith texted, "You'll regret this someday." But no one had asked what it felt like to be robbed by the people you'd once trusted to protect you. I spent my evenings in the apartment I bought with my own money, small but mine. No noise, no tension, no one walking in like they owned the air. Freedom had a sound. It was quiet, steady, and peaceful. My sister tried reaching out one night. She sent a photo of the withdrawal notice from her college. "Please fix this," her message read. No apology. Just expectation. I stared at the screen for a long time, then replied with 2 words. "I can't." The next morning Mom called. "Your father hasn't been sleeping," she said. "He's ashamed." "He's angry," I corrected. "Shame looks different." "He's still your dad," she whispered. "So is Grandpa," I said, "and look who he trusted." There was a pause, soft, defeated. "You've changed," she said. "No," I whispered. "I just stopped pretending your version of love didn't hurt." That night I drove out to the edge of the city, to the old house Grandpa left me. It was quiet there, untouched since his passing. His study still smelled faintly of cedar and old paper. On the desk sat the photo of him and me, the one he'd kept framed, the one no one else ever knew about. I set down the office keys, the business papers, the records of every account I'd reclaimed, and whispered, "You were right. Silence does cost something. But not as much as losing yourself." The house creaked softly, and for the first time it felt like peace answering back. The first sign came in the form of a call from the bank. "Your father's business loan has defaulted," the officer said. I listened in silence. The same account he used to drain my savings had gone into debt. Poetic. Days later, my sister posted on social media. Her tuition delayed, her future uncertain. The same friends who once mocked me in her comments now flooded her inbox with sympathy. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. Mom showed up next, unannounced, the way guilt always does. She stood at my gate clutching a small box of cookies, the kind she used to make when I was little. "I didn't come for money," she said quietly. "I came because I miss you." For a moment I almost believed her. But then she added, "Your father's worried about losing the house. Maybe." I stepped back. There it is. Tears filled her eyes. "You can't watch your own family fall apart." "Mom," I said, voice steady. "You already did. I just stopped holding the pieces." Behind her, Dad's car idled. He couldn't even come to the door himself. When she left, I watched them drive off through the rain, small figures swallowed by the night. The next week, a newspaper article appeared. Local business faces lawsuit for unpaid employees. Dad's company. The same one I'd rebuilt once before. That night, I walked into my grandfather's old study again, turned on the desk lamp, and opened his final letter. The one I'd read 100 times. "Let them learn, Nora. You don't have to destroy them. Life will handle that for you." And it had. I didn't need revenge. All I needed was distance and time. By the end of that month, my father's company had folded. My sister moved back home. And my mother stopped calling. The silence they once used to hurt me had finally turned on them. And I didn't need to raise my voice to be heard anymore. The house sat quiet that morning, the same way it had the night my father cut me out. But this time it wasn't loss, it was peace. I stood in the living room, holding the final copy of Grandpa's will. His words echoed in my mind like a promise. "For the child who was forgotten, everything I own is hers." For months I thought that letter was about inheritance. Now I knew it was about liberation. My family's downfall hadn't come from revenge. It came from the truth they'd ignored. Every silence. Every dismissal. Every time they looked at me and saw less. The universe simply handed the weight back. Mom called one last time. Not angry, not manipulative. Just small. "We don't know how to start again," she whispered. I closed my eyes, feeling the ache of what could have been. "You start," I said softly, "by not pretending you didn't break it." She didn't reply. Just breathed, shaky and real, before hanging up. Outside, the morning sun spread across the porch. The same place I once sat crying with a suitcase. The same light, but everything else had changed. The estate, the business, the silence, all mine now. But more importantly, so was my peace. I walked through Grandpa's study one last time. His glasses still rested beside an open book. The air smelled faintly of cedar and ink. I placed the letter back in its envelope and whispered, "You were right. I didn't need to destroy them. I just had to remember who I was before they made me forget." I turned off the lamp, opened the window, and let the breeze move through the room. Soft, clean, final. Then I walked outside into the sunlight, not as the forgotten daughter, but as the woman who turned silence into inheritance.